YouTube doesn't think you deserve to know when new videos get uploaded. Show them they're not the boss of you by smashing that bell icon, so you can be notified when your favorite content creators are begging for your attention. I'll say this for Marvel Studios, they are timing these releases very strategically. Just a matter of weeks removed from Avengers Infinity War, easily the darkest movie this studio has produced to date, and we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, a film that, bless their hearts, is about as polar opposite a project as they could make right now. I enjoyed the first Ant-Man film a lot. Compared to the movies Marvel usually likes to make, it was a smaller scale story, no pun intended, but it had a lot of charm. It was a fun, light-hearted heist movie that had its dramatic moments, but was also pretty heavy on the comedy and had a lot of fun with itself. Ant-Man and the Wasp is very much a movie in that same vein, and after the emotional gut punch of Avengers Infinity War, that's exactly what I was in the mood for. I walked into that theater hoping to laugh and have a good time with a movie whose money shot from the trailer was a giant Hello Kitty Pez dispenser, and that's what they delivered, so the movie earns points on that score. It's not without a few problems though, and for me the biggest one is the shift in focus away from the title character. I suspected something like this might happen when the Wasp got to share top billing in the title of the film, but it still caught me a little off guard to see that, believe it or not, this movie is not really about Ant-Man. It's actually more about the Pym family, Hope, Hank, and, spoiler alert, Janet. As was teased in the first film, the main plot here is about Hank and Hope trying to find a way to bring Janet back from the quantum realm, and Scott Lang is kinda just along for the ride. He still has stuff to do, but it's not really his story like the first film was, and in my opinion, Ant-Man and the Wasp is worse off for it. The first Ant-Man movie was basically a quasi-redemption story about a down-on-his-luck guy who's trying to put his life back together and trying to be a better man and a better father, and ends up becoming a superhero and, perhaps more importantly, a hero to his daughter. They kept it nice and tight and simple, and they didn't overload it with a lot of extra stuff they didn't need. This one has a lot more going on due to the increased focus on the Pym family, and to me, it felt a little unnecessary at times. Not that it doesn't produce some good stuff. Ghost makes for a pretty effective antagonist when she's there, and Lawrence Fishburne has a nice turn as Bill Foster, but while none of these things are bad, they don't feel entirely crucial either. Plus, this is all stuff related to the Pyms, which continues to take the focus off the character you built the whole last movie around. And hey, look, I get it. You got Michael Douglas in your movie, you don't want to waste him. But I couldn't help but feel like the movie makers got a little distracted at times. The emotional core of the first film was Scott Lang and his relationship with his daughter Cassie. In this one, it's about Hank and Hope and Janet, the original Wasp, who unfortunately is barely in the film, so it kind of feels like something's missing here. Something else it's missing is a good solid villain to drive the plot. Like I said, I did enjoy Ghost, but she's not a threat in the same way that Yellow Jacket was. She's just a character loosely connected to Hank Pym who needs something, and her getting it kind of necessitates kicking the Pyms when they're down. She's got a few more layers than the usual Marvel bad guys do, and you can even sympathize with her at times, but she's more of an agitator than a looming threat. In that sense, the movie kind of reminds me of Season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in a weird way. Both are stories where there isn't exactly a major villain to drive the narrative and build things around because the drive comes from the story itself. And in both cases, I think the results are a little mixed. Another issue is that the balancing act between Ant-Man and the Wasp is a bit skewed. Previously, Scott Lang was shown to be an everyman, yes, but generally a pretty capable and intelligent guy who was an engineer, who was good at parkour, who adapted to the suit and picked up the skills quickly, and even bested Falcon in a one-on-one fight. But here, with the Wasp sharing the spotlight now, it feels like they came close to falling into a pretty common SJW trope nowadays, making the male character look bad so the female character can look better by comparison. It never becomes egregious or annoying or anything, and Ant-Man does get his moments to shine, but the story seems tailored to make the Wasp the cool one in this partnership, whereas Scott Lang is played much more for comedy than he was before. And more often than not, the comedy works, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I couldn't help but feel like the character took a little bit of a step back in the process. And that's kind of a shame, because this really wasn't necessary. Hope was a badass in the first movie, and they never had to diminish Scott Lang to make that work, so why go that route here just because she's got her own costume now? But let's not get bogged down in the negative, because this movie does have a lot of things going for it. The action is pretty solid, even if the novelty of some of the gimmicks is worn off a little bit. Some of the best stuff involves action beats where they're playing around with the size-changing technology. They get more creative with it in this one, and there are some fun beats with that. You saw a lot of them in the trailer, granted, but they did save some really good ones that I'm not going to spoil. Michael Pena once again is hilarious, and Randall Park as Agent Jimmy Woo doesn't have a huge role, but he made me laugh every time he was on screen. And they did something here that I personally didn't see coming, but actually thought was a nice touch. They pointed out how much of a dick Hank Pym is. In the comics, he hasn't always been the nicest guy in the world, and they don't go too deeply into that territory because then this would become a very different movie, but they do subtly acknowledge that he's got some flaws and that not everyone is the biggest Hank Pym fan for obvious reasons, and I appreciated that. Overall, I'd say Ant-Man and the Wasp is a fun, enjoyable movie that does expand on the previous film, but also makes the misstep of expanding its focus to the point where it sometimes takes its eye off what made the first movie work. The result is a sequel that is still a really good time, that still gave me what I was in the mood for, but doesn't pack quite the same punch the original did. I liked it quite a bit, I just like the first one better. Great cliffhanger at the end though. They got me good with that one. I've been thinking about ways to increase my content output, so if you'd like to see me do more movie reviews in the future, let me know down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, click the bell icon to be notified when new videos get uploaded, and I'll be seeing you guys real soon. Over. Out.